females out there that serve, that their serve is biomechanically pretty correct. But I'll go out on a limb and say it's well into the 90% that most of them are all incorrect. Almost all of them on the second serve are way off. Let me explain. This is key. When you're hitting a serve, we've all been taught you want to relax, you want to be smooth, you want a continuous motion, all that stuff. Forget about that for a second. That's not what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about is when should the racket enter this area. And if you're not looking for it, well, first you got to be aware of it. Then once you're aware of it, then you got to look at it. Then you got to really see it, because they might be in there 20%, 30%. Some people are in there way over here before the legs dry. Let me explain, because I know a lot of people are confused. So let's just say I go into my serve. I'll talk a little bit about some of the key things on the serve in general. You go to serve the ball, the tossing and the bending and the tilting. There's going to be a toss, a bend, and a tilt. And in general, probably the most optimal way to do it should be at the same time. Instead of going ooh, ah, ooh. Okay, instead of having a shake and a bake and whatever, you want to try to toss, bend, and tilt at the same time. A guy named Fetter does that. He's pretty good. Okay, so toss, bend, and tilt at the same time. So that's just something right off the top that everybody should remember. If you can toss, bend, and tilt at the same time, it's going to be more rhythmic. The position of the elbow. The elbow should always be shoulder, shoulder, elbow. It should always be. Now you can draw a straight line. Don't even need to look. There's a straight line through my shoulder, shoulder, elbow. Every time. It's almost going to be like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. I change this, but I don't change the angle. This angle is a constant. One of the biggest things, there was one kid, his elbow was 3 inches too low. We had him serve from this position. The next serve, he hit it 12 miles faster because you can get over the top quicker. I'll get into that in a second. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is how this should be timed. Now, I toss, bend, and tilt, shoulder, shoulder, elbow. Here's what happens. The number one problem, when the racket starts to come towards this area, when the racket starts to enter, all right, when the racket starts to enter, and I wouldn't even go and tell people the back scratch and stuff like that. If you want to use that as a teaching tool or whatever, that might be good, but that can mess a lot of people up because they stick it down there a week early, and that kind of exacerbates the problem I'm talking about. Now, you might get the kids to hit it up more, but just be careful about that. Because here's what should happen. The minute the racket starts to go, you're up in this position at 90 degrees. The minute the racket starts to come towards the ear, and that's the entry point, it's towards your ear. You don't want to do what we call externally rotate and go that way. A lot of kids do that. You see like the frying pan or waiter or whatever. Alright? So the racket comes this way. I'll talk about that in a minute also. The key is toss, bend, and tilt. Now for this position, anybody want to guess what happens next?
Jump.
It's all okay. This is the key. If I had anybody come out here and throw a ball, everybody would do it right. Well, maybe John would, but most everybody would do it right, okay? Hey, you're in the front. Okay? Everybody would do it right. Leg drive initiates racket speed. Leg drive biomechanically initiates the racket speed. There's a timing that has to occur. Here's what happens. Unfortunately, you see it, people throw a football, a baseball, any type of throwing, it doesn't get that messed up. In tennis, unfortunately, you have a racket in your hand. Your arm is now twice as long. That's just the deal. So, because you're taught to be smooth, and you're taught to be relaxed, you go back, this gets in there 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I mean, some people are here. It might be continuous. And then they start their leg drive. It's like me starting my leg drive when the racket's here. You start the leg drive, what? See how this is dynamic. Look, this is dynamic. Okay? It's dynamic. Now watch this. Same thing. It's dynamic. The leg drive initiates the racket as it comes in. So what we found out, and this is huge. So many people serve, it just went off the charts just by this. But you got this is the only thing I look for. I don't talk about the ball toss unless they're tossing it like in a tree or something. I don't get into that. This is the #1 culprit. Even if they start their lake drive here, I don't know how much